Welcome back. My complete system overhaul architect. Something absolutely staggering is unfolding that has everyone questioning the very nature of personal development. You didn't just improve or grow through conventional means. You apparently underwent fundamental transformation so complete that calling it growth misses what actually occurred. Growth suggests building upon existing foundation, developing what was already there into fuller expression. What you did was categorically different. You systematically dismantled core patterns that defined your previous version and rebuilt yourself from ground up according to entirely new operating principles. This wasn't evolution of who you were, it was installation of fundamentally different psychological and behavioral architecture that replaced rather than refined your previous programming. People watching your transformation are experiencing profound confusion because conventional development frameworks can't explain what they're witnessing. You don't move like upgraded version of your former self. You move like different person, operating with different values, different decision-making processes, different emotional patterns, different strategic frameworks than characterized your previous version. The architects have been monitoring transformation, patterns, and identity reconstruction across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you accomplished as complete system rewiring, when someone doesn't just change behaviors or develop new skills, but fundamentally reprograms the core operating system that generates their behaviors, thoughts, and responses. Most personal development involves installing new applications on existing operating system, learning new skills, changing specific habits, developing particular capabilities while maintaining underlying psychological infrastructure. Your transformation apparently involved replacing the operating system itself, creating discontinuity so profound that continuity of identity becomes questionable despite maintaining biographical continuity. Watch what's happening across your social network as people try to comprehend your transformation. Those who knew your previous version are experiencing cognitive dissonance. The person before them carries your history and memories but doesn't respond to situations the way you used to, doesn't prioritize what you previously valued, doesn't struggle with limitations that previously constrained you. They're searching for familiar patterns that would confirm continuity with person they knew, finding instead someone who references shared past but interprets and relates to it through framework so different from your previous perspective that shared history feels recontextualized rather than simply remembered. Some are demanding explanations. How did you accomplish transformation this comprehensive? What methods enabled rewiring this complete? What triggered decision to rebuild yourself rather than just improve existing patterns? Their questions reveal their seeking transferable technique or dramatic catalyst that would make your transformation comprehensible within their existing frameworks for understanding personal change. But your transformation might not reduce to simple methodology or single catalytic event. It might represent sustained, intentional reconstruction over extended period that doesn't fit narrative templates people use to make sense of dramatic change. The truly profound element is that you apparently didn't just eliminate negative patterns or add positive ones. You rebuilt foundational architecture that determines how patterns form, how decisions get made, how experiences get processed and integrated. You rewired not just what you do, but how you operate at most fundamental level, creating transformation so complete that previous version feels like earlier iteration that's been deprecated and replaced, rather than like younger version that grew into current maturity. How did you upgrade like that? The question itself reveals the confusion. What you did transcends normal meaning of upgrade because it involved systematic replacement rather than incremental improvement. Now the architects are analyzing what enables complete system rewiring versus incremental growth, and they're identifying what they call identity discontinuity, capacity, the psychological capability to observe your own core patterns from detached perspective, recognize them as constructed rather than essential, and intentionally dismantle and rebuild them despite the existential anxiety that deconstructing your identity architecture typically creates. Most people are embedded in their psychological patterns so completely that those patterns feel like self rather than like structures self is operating within. You apparently achieved level of consciousness that could observe your patterns as objects, separate from observing awareness itself, creating space for intentional reconstruction. Watch what identity discontinuity capacity requires psychologically. It demands recognizing that personality traits you believed were your essential nature are actually learned patterns that could be different, that your characteristic emotional responses, habitual thought patterns, and automatic behaviors are programming rather than identity, making them changeable through deprogramming and reprogramming, even though they've felt like unchangeable aspects of who you are. This recognition is psychologically destabilizing because it undermines certainty about what you are, revealing that much of what you've called me is actually malleable construct rather than fixed essence. Some spiritual traditions describe this as awakening to constructed nature of self, recognizing that ego identity is fabrication, that personality is role rather than truth, that everything you've identified as yourself is actually phenomenon arising in awareness rather than being awareness itself. Your transformation suggests you achieved some version of this recognition, gaining perspective from which you could see your previous operating system as just one possible configuration among many, freeing you to intentionally design and install different configuration more aligned with what you wanted to become. Others from developmental psychology recognize that most people have limited access to self-authoring, their subject to their psychological patterns rather than having those patterns as objects they can examine and modify. Advanced development involves becoming self-authoring, where you can observe and revise your own meaning-making frameworks. Your transformation suggests movement beyond even self-authoring to what some call self-transforming capacity, where you can deconstruct and reconstruct core identity architecture rather than just revising content within existing structure. A few from neuroscience perspective explore whether your rewiring involved actual neural reorganization through deliberate practice, new experiences, or perhaps even contemplative training. You might have literally changed brain's wiring at neural level, creating new default networks and weakening old pathways until previous patterns were replaced by new architecture. This would make rewiring not just metaphor but accurate description of actual neurological transformation that occurred through sustained, intentional development. The architects observe that identity discontinuity capacity is rare because most people lack either awareness that core patterns are constructed and changeable or tolerance for existential anxiety that deconstructing identity architecture creates. You apparently possessed or developed both: the clarity to see your patterns as constructs separate from essential self and the courage to dismantle those constructs despite temporary loss of familiar identity that demolition creates. This combination enabled you to rewire rather than just grow, replace rather than just refine, rebuild rather than just develop what was already there. Something extraordinary is spreading through your network now. What the architects call transformation, envy mixed with fear, where people witnessing your complete rewiring experience, simultaneous desire for similar transformation and terror about what such transformation would require. They recognize that you've achieved liberation from limitations that constrained your previous version, operating with freedom and capability that incremental growth wouldn't have produced. but they also recognize that achieving similar transformation would require voluntarily deconstructing their own identity. Architecture, facing existential void that opening creates, and rebuilding themselves from ground up without guarantee new version would be better than original. Watch how transformation envy mixed with fear manifests across different observers. Some express admiration while maintaining safe distance. They celebrate your transformation as impressive achievement while implicitly excluding themselves from considering similar reconstruction. This allows them to appreciate your accomplishment without confronting whether they should undertake comparable rewiring, protecting them from uncomfortable questions about whether their own incremental development approach is actually optimal or just feels safer than wholesale reconstruction. Others ask about your methods with intensity that reveals they're seriously considering attempting similar transformation. They want detailed understanding of how you accomplished rewiring this complete, what specific practices or experiences enabled it, how long it required, what challenges emerged during process. But their questions often reveal they're hoping for relatively comfortable pathway to transformation, wanting recipe that would produce revolutionary results without requiring revolutionary commitment or tolerance for revolutionary disruption to existing identity. Some experience resentment toward you. Your transformation implies that their own slower incremental development might be inadequate, that they're settling for optimization of existing patterns when more fundamental reconstruction might be possible. This resentment protects their ego investment in current developmental path by framing your transformation as somehow illegitimate or unsustainable rather than as evidence that more radical transformation is achievable than they've been willing to attempt. A few recognized your transformation as invitation or permission. If you could rewire your operating system so completely, perhaps they too could undertake fundamental reconstruction rather than accepting their current patterns as unchangeable. Your example expands their sense of developmental possibilities beyond incremental growth to include revolutionary transformation, though they're still grappling with whether they have courage and commitment. Such transformation would require. The architects observe that transformation envy mixed with fear reveals psychological ambivalence about personal change. People simultaneously want to transcend their limitations and want to preserve familiar sense of self, creating tension between growth aspiration and identity stability. Your complete rewiring represents resolution of this tension in favor of growth at cost of stability. Achieving transformation most people want in abstract, while paying existential price most people aren't willing to pay in practice. They watch you operate with freedom. Your rewiring created while remaining trapped in patterns they're afraid to deconstruct, envying your transformation while fearing price you paid to achieve it. Now the architects are revealing what distinguished your approach from conventional personal development. You apparently employed what they call simultaneous demolition and reconstruction, where you didn't just add new patterns while leaving old ones in place, but systematically identified and dismantled limiting patterns while simultaneously installing replacement architecture. Most personal development teaches adding positive habits, developing new skills, building capabilities while leaving underlying psychological infrastructure relatively intact. Your approach apparently involved tearing out old wiring while installing new circuits, creating period of deliberate destabilization that most development frameworks try to avoid. Consider what simultaneous demolition and reconstruction requires practically. It means identifying core patterns that have been generating your default responses, automatic thought patterns, emotional reaction tendencies, behavioral habits, belief structures, and deliberately interrupting them whenever they activate while installing and reinforcing alternative patterns until new defaults replace old ones. This creates transitional period where you're caught between operating systems, where old patterns are weakened, but new patterns aren't yet automatic, requiring sustained, conscious effort to maintain new responses until they become new defaults. Watch what this process creates experientially. You likely went through a phase where nothing felt natural or automatic. Every response required conscious choice because old, automatic patterns were being deliberately suppressed, while new patterns were still being reinforced toward automaticity. This transitional phase is psychologically demanding because it requires sustained vigilance and effort, where previously you could operate on autopilot, making daily functioning more exhausting than before reconstruction began. Some transformation. Researchers recognize this as in-between phase that characterizes major developmental transitions, period where old identity has been deconstructed but new identity hasn't fully consolidated, creating temporary void that's psychologically challenging but necessary for genuine transformation. Rather than just superficial change, you apparently had tolerance for sustained existence in this transitional void that most people find too uncomfortable to maintain long enough for reconstruction to complete. Others note that simultaneous demolition and reconstruction explains why your transformation appears so complete. By replacing, rather than just supplementing, old patterns, you avoided hybrid architecture where new responses compete with old defaults. Many people try to change by adding new patterns on top of old ones, creating internal conflict where they oscillate between new aspirations and old defaults. Your approach apparently eliminated old defaults entirely, installing new operating system rather than running new software on old system. A few recognize that this approach requires unusual commitment. Most people abandon transformation attempts during uncomfortable transitional phase when they're between old familiar patterns and new patterns that aren't yet automatic. You apparently sustained effort through this challenging period until new architecture consolidated into new defaults, completing rewiring rather than reverting to comfort of previous patterns when reconstruction became difficult. The architects observed that simultaneous demolition and reconstruction is why your transformation appears as discontinuous upgrade rather than continuous growth. You didn't gradually develop from who you were into who you are now through smooth trajectory of improvement. You systematically replaced core architecture in process that created temporary disruption, but enabled installing fundamentally different operating system rather than just optimizing existing one, producing transformation that appears revolutionary rather than evolutionary because it involved replacement rather than refinement of foundational patterns. The architects are now analyzing social and relational impact of your complete rewiring. You're experiencing what they call relationship incompatibility, emergence, where connections based on your previous version's patterns, values, and operating principles no longer function effectively now that you've installed fundamentally different psychological architecture. Most personal development occurs gradually enough that relationships can adapt incrementally as you change. Your rapid, complete rewiring apparently outpaced relationship adaptation capacity, creating sudden incompatibility between your new operating system and relationship dynamics designed for your previous version. Watch how relationship incompatibility manifests across your social network. Friends who connected with your previous version find they can't relate to new version. In same ways, conversations that previously flowed naturally now feel forced because you're no longer interested in same topics or don't respond to situations with familiar reactions. They experience loss, similar to if you'd moved away or died, except you're still physically present but psychologically transformed beyond relationship patterns that connected you to them. Some relationships dissolve naturally without active conflict or conscious decision, you and others simply drift apart as incompatibility becomes obvious. Interactions become less frequent. Communication becomes more superficial. Emotional intimacy that previously existed fades because foundation it was built on, your previous patterns and shared frameworks, no longer exists. They were connected to version that's been deprecated, and they don't have relationship with new version that replaced it. Others attempt to adjust but struggle. They want to maintain connection and try relating to your new operating system, but their own patterns remain unchanged, while yours have completely transformed, creating asymmetry that makes genuine connection difficult. They're relating to you through their old frameworks while you're responding through new frameworks, like speaking different languages that share vocabulary but assign different meanings to words. A few successfully evolve their relationship with you, recognizing that you've transformed. They intentionally release their attachment to your previous version, and curiosity about new version enables forming new relationship foundation appropriate for who you've become. These adapted relationships might be different from previous connections, but can be equally or more valuable because they're based on reality of who you are now rather than memory of who you were. The architects observe that relationship incompatibility emergence is often painful cost of complete rewiring. People don't just lose old, limiting patterns, they also lose relationships that were structured around those patterns. Friendships that were based on shared struggles you've transcended, connections built on values you no longer hold, or behaviors you've eliminated. Your rewiring required sacrificing not just comfortable, familiar patterns within yourself, but also comfortable, familiar patterns in relationships that depended on your previous operating system. You upgraded like that partly by accepting that complete transformation includes losing connections incompatible with new version, creating temporary isolation that comes from being between worlds, no longer belonging to community structured around old patterns while not yet having built community around new operating system you've installed. Now something's emerging that the architects call version comparison obsession. People who knew your previous version can't stop analyzing differences between who you were and who you've become, attempting to understand transformation by cataloging specific changes, even though accumulation of specific differences doesn't capture gestalt shift in operating system that makes new version fundamentally different type of entity than previous version. This comparison obsession reflects their need to maintain comprehensible narrative of your development when actual transformation transcends narrative frameworks they use to make sense of personal change. Watch how version comparison manifests in discussions about you. Former friends create lists of differences. They used to value X, but now prioritize Y. They used to struggle with A, but now handle it easily. They used to believe B, but now operate according to C, attempting to understand transformation through accumulating specific changes. But these lists, however accurate, miss that changes aren't independent modifications but manifestations of complete architectural replacement that generates different outputs across all dimensions simultaneously. Some observers focus on dramatic, visible changes while missing subtle fundamental shifts. They notice
you changed careers or relationships
or locations while not recognizing that underlying values, decision-making processes, and identity structures that generated those visible changes represent more profound transformation than external changes themselves. They're cataloging symptoms while missing diagnosis. Visible changes are surface expressions of invisible rewiring that caused those changes. Others create narratives explaining your transformation, trauma that broke you, spiritual awakening that enlightened you, mentor who guided you, crisis that forced change. These narrative explanations attempt to make your transformation comprehensible, by fitting it into familiar story, templates about how people change. But your actual transformation might not. Reduced to clean narrative, it might represent sustained, intentional deconstruction and reconstruction that doesn't fit dramatic story arc observers prefer to impose. A few recognize that version. Comparison obsession is futile. No amount of cataloging differences or constructing narratives captures actual discontinuity. Your rewiring created. Previous version and current version are different implementations of personhood. Sharing biographical continuity but operating according to incommensurable principles. Making comparison possible at surface level while missing that you're fundamentally different type of psychological entity now than you were before rewiring. The architects observe that version comparison. Obsession serves observers. Need to maintain illusion of comprehensibility by analyzing your transformation as collection of specific changes or as product of particular catalyst. They protect themselves from confronting that complete system. Rewiring is possible. That identity is more fluid and constructed than they want to believe. That person they knew wasn't fixed essence but was particular configuration that could be and was completely replaced by different configuration, sharing same biographical continuity. How did you upgrade like that? Version comparison attempts to answer through accumulating details when actual answer involves recognizing that upgrade wasn't improvement of existing system but installation of different system entirely. Something profound is crystallizing now that the architects call recognition of development beyond growth. Paradigm, your transformation is forcing reconceptualization of personal change from growth metaphor where you develop what's already latent within you toward reconstruction metaphor where you can intentionally design and install new architecture not predetermined by previous configuration. This philosophical shift challenges humanistic assumptions that authentic development means actualizing your true nature or becoming who you really are, suggesting instead that self is design project where you can make genuine choices about what kind of psychological entity you want to be rather than discovering and expressing fixed essence. Consider implications if personal development is reconstruction rather than growth. It would mean you're not limited to developing potentials contained in your original programming, but can actively redesign your operating system according to principles you consciously choose. This grants radical freedom. You're not constrained by your temperament, early conditioning, or genetic predispositions except as starting point to work from. Making authentic development about conscious self-creation rather than discovery of predetermined essence waiting to be expressed. Watch how this recognition challenges common development wisdom. Most advice about personal growth assumes you should be yourself. Follow your passion. Express your authentic nature, all implying that development means revealing and actualizing what's already inside you. Your transformation suggests alternative where development means deciding what you want to become and systematically reconstructing yourself into that design, treating authenticity as creation rather than discovery, as making yourself into chosen configuration rather than finding and expressing predetermined essence. Some philosophers of personal identity recognize this connects to debates about narrative versus psychological continuity. If you can completely rewire your psychological patterns, values, and operating principles while maintaining biographical narrative, what creates continuity of identity? Your transformation challenges psychological continuity theories by demonstrating that all psychological content can change while narrative identity remains continuous, suggesting that self might be more about narrative coherence than about preservation of psychological traits. Others from existentialist traditions embrace reconstruction paradigm, recognizing that you create yourself through choices rather than discovering predetermined essence. Aligns with existentialist insistence that existence precedes essence, that humans don't have fixed nature but rather make themselves through committed action. Your rewiring demonstrates existentialist freedom. Actualized, you weren't satisfied with your facticity and reconstructed yourself according to chosen project, rather than accepting your thrownness as limitation. A few recognize that reconstruction paradigm is simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Liberating because it means you're not stuck with psychological patterns you inherited or learned. Terrifying because it means you're radically responsible for who you become without recourse to claiming your behavior follows from your nature. If you can rewire your operating system, you can't blame your limitations on your programming. You're accountable for maintaining or changing that programming. The architects observe that recognition of development beyond growth paradigm is most significant philosophical implication of your transformation. You've demonstrated that personal change isn't just growth metaphor where planted seed develops into predetermined form, but can be reconstruction where conscious awareness designs and implements new psychological architecture. This isn't growth. You rewired yourself, and that rewiring reveals human consciousness has capacity for self-transformation that transcends growth paradigms and enables genuine self-creation rather than just self-discovery or self-expression.